Last week, I named the room you're sitting in. Founder, CEO with real authority, board chair, next generation principal stepping into a family-held business, capital backer with a position in a company you want to outlast you. I told you the ceiling your company has been pressing against is made of belief, and I said that over the next 8 weeks I would walk the 12 places where that ceiling actually sits, the 12 belief pairs. This is the first. Belief pair 1. Humans are the problem, or humans are participants in living systems. Before I describe the pair, a word on how these 8 episodes are built. Each pair follows the same structure. I name the from belief, the belief the field has operated under for 40 years, and that most companies still operate under without naming. Then I name the to belief, what an examined and replaced belief would look like. I describe how the from appears in your company, in language, in default response, and in the position that the sustainability function holds. And I close with the design question that the to opens up. The pairs are not motivational exercises, they are structural reads. By the end of these 8 weeks, the architecture of your company's operative beliefs about sustainability will be visible. Now, this first pair is the deepest. It's the premise the whole field has rested on, and almost nobody names it. Here is the from belief. Humans are the problem. The natural world was fine until we arrived. Human activity is, by definition, extractive. By definition, degrading. By definition, the thing that goes wrong in any environment it touches. The best we can aspire to under this belief is to do less of the thing we cannot stop doing. To take less, to emit less, to waste less, to make a smaller footprint. The whole vocabulary of sustainability. The reduction targets, the impact assessments, the footprint calculations, the offsets, they're all built on this belief. Just listen to the words your company uses. Our impact, our emissions, our waste, our footprint. Every single one of those phrases carries this same premise, that what your company does is fundamentally an imposition on a world that would prefer the company did not exist. The work of sustainability under this belief is the work of making the imposition smaller. This is the operative belief. And it runs underneath almost every framework, every standard, every certification, every disclosure regime your company has adopted in the last 30 years. And it's never been completely examined. Here's why it's never been examined. It feels humble. It feels responsible. It feels like a morally serious position. The alternative, to claim that human activity has a legitimate place in the living world, sounds like the position taken by people who do not care, the people who deny the science, the people who externalize the costs. So the people who do care, who have spent careers caring, hold the from belief because the only audible alternative sounds worse. But that from belief is not humble. It's inaccurate. Homo sapiens is a biological organism. It evolved within the living systems of the planet, not against them. The capacity for language, for tool use, for symbolic reasoning, for a cooperative organization that distinguishes our species, it is not an aberration in the living world. It's one of the most complex known expressions of the generative capacity of life to produce novelty. The cherry tree and the human brain are on the same evolutionary continuum. The forest mycorrhizal network and the human supply chain are on the same continuum. We are not foreign to the system, we are an output of it. So the question is not whether human activity belongs in the living world. It does. The question is whether human activity is designed to operate within the cycling logic of living systems or against it. That is a different question entirely. Just watch what happens to the design question once the belief shifts. Under the from belief, humans are the problem. The design question is, how do we reduce the damage? The work is a reduction challenge. The instrument is a measurement of how much less the company is taking, emitting, wasting. The destination is a smaller version of the current activity. Progress is asymptotic. The destination is never reached because the destination is the absence of the company. Under the two belief, humans are participants in living systems. And here, the design question is, how do we design the participation? The work is a design challenge. The instrument is a specification for what a participation aligned with cycling logic would look like. That destination is a different kind of activity, not a smaller amount of the current one. Progress is not asymptotic. The destination is reachable because the destination is something that can be designed, built, and operate. Two different questions, two different ceilings, and two different futures. I want to be precise about something here because the distinction matters. None of this is to say that the reduction work is wrong. When the science says a substance needs to go to zero, CFCs in aerosols, lead in fuel, persistent organic pollutants in waterways, PFAS in textiles and food packaging, taking it to zero is the right work. It is necessary. It's often urgent. Let the work begin where it has not yet begun, and let it continue, well-resourced and well-led, until it is finished. Nothing in Pair 1 asks you to stop the reduction work, slow it down, or treat it as less important than it is. What Pair 1 asks you to see is that the reduction work on its own cannot be the destination. The goal is not zero. Reduction work is necessary. Reduction work alone is insufficient. The from belief makes the reduction work the whole work. The destination becomes a smaller version of current activity. And the ceiling sits exactly where the reductions plateau. Now the two belief keeps the reduction work fully intact. Every CFC, every persistent toxin, every avoidable emission still needs to go where the science says it needs to go. And it places that work inside a larger design specification. The specification for sustaining the conditions that life on Earth requires. The reduction work continues with more clarity about what it is in service of. The destination changes. Necessary, not sufficient. The whole episode turns on this distinction. And I want to be clear about something else as well before I continue. Nothing in this pair is asking you to trade the word sustainability for the word design. Sustainability is the right word. It means the right word on the destination side of this pair, and on the destination side of every pair that I will walk through in the coming week. What changes when the belief shifts is not the word. What changes is what the word is asking your company to do. Under the one belief, sustainability asks you to reduce. Under the two belief, sustainability asks you to design and to keep reducing where reducing is required. Inside a design specification for sustaining the conditions that life requires. The word stays. The destination opens. Hold this thought carefully because it matters for everything that follows. The sustainability field has spent 40 years inventing alternative words. Regenerative, circular, net zero, nature positive. Each one offered as the next generation word. And each one in turn co-opted, conflated, and bridged back into the reduction frame that the from belief permits. The word was never the problem. The unexamined belief underneath the word was the problem. Replace the word and the same belief will co-opt the replacement, just as it co-opted sustainability. When you examine the belief, the word becomes accurate again. And that is why every pair in this series keeps the word sustainability on the destination side. The reclaim is structural. It's the work that the belief pairs actually do. My longtime mentor and friend Bill McDonough has a phrase that only makes sense under the two belief. Bill says, design is the first signal of human intention. Under the from belief, the signal of our intention is unwelcome. The less of it, the better. Under the two belief, the signal of our intention is the most important thing we can offer to the living world. The phrase is the quiet test of which belief the listener actually holds. Before I describe what the shift to the two belief produced in practice, I want to name where I spent the first 20 years of my career because the example matters for what comes next. I spent those years at SC Johnson, the last 8 working as one of the first directors of sustainable product innovation in the world. SC Johnson is one of the most genuinely committed companies the field has ever produced. Sam Johnson made the decision to phase out chlorofluorocarbons from the company's aerosol products way back in 1975, 4 years before the US regulated them because the science on stratospheric ozone was already clear. And the company's published Credo, This We Believe, called for action consistent with what the company believed. There was a credo. It said the right things. It was meant. Sam Johnson backed it personally. The leadership team backed it. The company invested behind it. By every reasonable measure, SC Johnson was ahead of the field, not just rhetorically, but operationally. The CFC decision was the right decision, made early, executed well. So was a long sequence of reductions, substitutions, and chemistry redesigns across the 2 decades that followed. That reduction work was real work, and it mattered. It still matters. And the ceiling was still there. That's the observation that's worth holding. Not that SC Johnson fell short in any way. SCJ was actually a poster child for doing the right thing, and remains so. The reduction work was right. The leadership was right. The credo was right. None of that was the limit. The limit was that even at SCJ, with the right reductions made early and well, with serious commitment, with a principal whose conviction was real, the destination that the field had available to them, the place the journey could end, was still less harm. The Credo committed the company to doing the right thing. The unexamined belief defined the shape of the available right thing. And in 1975 and 85 and 95, the available right thing was do the necessary reductions and stop there. Necessary, but insufficient. The destination the sustainability field offered did not include that which would actually sustain the conditions that life requires. Not because anyone refused it, but because no one had named pair one, and so the design space the two belief opens up was not available anywhere to anyone, not even to the companies most ready to enter it. That is the precision worth carrying. The ceiling is not produced by a lack of commitment. It's not produced by a lack of leadership. And it's not produced by a lack of investment. It's not produced by failure to do the reduction work. It's produced by an operative belief that defines the destination in a work that puts boundaries around the work, however serious the work and the company becomes. If the poster child of the era hit it, the ceiling is structural, not motivational, not operational, not commitment-based. Then I met Bill McDonough, and the shift that Cradle to Cradle was making, the shift that I spent the next 17 years working alongside, was a shift in this exact pair. The Cradle to Cradle certification program, the materials chemistry, the design protocols, all of them assumed the two belief. Humans as participants, design as the first signal of intention. The reduction work was still there inside the protocol. Toxic chemistry needed to go to zero. Problematic materials still need to be removed. But it was no longer the destination. It was a precondition for the work the protocol was actually designed to produce. What I saw in those rooms changed how I understood the previous 20 years. The very same talented people I'd worked with across 2 decades of corporate sustainability work, chemists, engineers, designers, product developers, they all produced different work in response to a different question. Given a reduction mandate, the work was constrained compliance. It was careful, it was competent, it was defensive, and it finished when the harm was bounded. But given a design challenge, design a chemistry, a building, a product that contributes to the living system, the same people approach the work as creators. The conversations widened, the time horizons lengthened. The decisions got better, the outcomes got better. The same talent, the same companies, the same budgets, a different question, a different ceiling. The ceiling I had been pressing against for 20 years at SC Johnson was not a technology ceiling. It was not a budget ceiling. It was not a commitment ceiling. SCJ had the technology, they had the budget, they had the commitment. The reduction work I had led was the right work, and it produced real results. What no company in the field had, because no one had named it, was a question that opened the design space that the two belief opened. The ceiling was hidden in the question. The question came from the unexamined belief. The belief was pair one. Here's how pair one appears in your company today, whether anyone's named it that way or not. It appears in three places. The first place is the working vocabulary of your sustainability function. Impact, footprint, reduction, offset, minimization. Reduce, reuse, recycle. These words have a legitimate place in the work. When something is being reduced, the word reduction is the right word for it. The issue is not the words. The issue is what is missing alongside them. If your sustainability function's vocabulary is exclusively a vocabulary of reduction, if no words describing design specification, life alignment, contribution to cycling systems, or what good would actually look like appear in your team's working language, then the operative belief on pair one is humans as problem, regardless of what the value statements say. The vocabulary is the bandwidth. What's missing from the vocabulary is missing from the work. Language precision is so important. The second place is the default responses when you ask the team what something good would actually look like. Most teams, when they're asked this question, will describe a version of current activity with smaller numbers attached. Less carbon, less waste, less water, fewer emissions. Those answers are legitimate when they describe the reduction work that's in progress. They're diagnostic when they describe the whole of what good looks like. But a team operating under the two belief, when asked the same question, will describe something structurally additional to the reductions. A participation in cycling material flows, contribution to the system the company depends on, a product or service that improves the conditions of its own continuance. The answer to the what good looks like question is the cleanest single read of whether the team has a destination beyond the reductions or only the reductions themselves. The third place is the position the sustainability function holds in the company's decision architecture. A function operating under the from belief sits downstream. It receives decisions made elsewhere and assesses them for impact reduction. It's a compliance and disclosure function. A function operating under the to belief sits upstream. It's in the room where the design is being formed. It's contributing to what is being designed, not assessing what was already designed. The position is the operative belief made visible. You can read your own company's belief on pair one in 20 seconds by asking when the sustainability function arrives in any design conversation. Early is to the to belief. Late is the from belief. You already know your company's answer in all three places. Now, why does this matter? Why have I taken so long in this video to talk about it? It matters because pair one sits underneath every other pair that I'll walk through in the coming weeks. The other 11 pairs assume an answer to this one. If your operative belief is humans as problem, every other pair will be read through that lens. And the readings will produce a particular kind of conclusion. Less. If your operative belief is that humans as participants, the same pairs will read differently, and the readings will produce a different kind of conclusion. Less and a design specification for what comes next. A company that has not examined pair 1 can adopt every framework, sign every commitment, hire every consultant, complete every reduction, and the work will still arrive at a smaller version of the current activity, rather than at a destination that's aligned with what sustains life. Not because the frameworks are wrong, not because the reductions are wrong, and not because the company is uncommitted. SC Johnson was and is committed. The reductions were and are real, and the ceiling is still there. The destination is defined by the operative belief. The operative belief on pair 1 determines whether the reductions are the whole journey or just the first part of it. The companies that have lifted the ceiling, and they do exist, they're the companies whose principles genuinely hold the two belief, not as a value statement, but as the operative premise underneath every significant decision. In every case I can recall, the shift was not produced by a framework or a target. It was produced by the principle examining the belief. Two final things before I close this video. First, this is the entry pair. Pair 2, that nature is fragile, or nature is the benchmark for design intelligence, is the natural next move, and it lands next week. Pair 1 and Pair 2 travel together as the philosophical entry point. They establish the premise that the diagnostic rests on. The rest of the pairs build on this foundation. Second, the question of how a belief that is this foundational has remained unexamined for 40 years across thousands of practitioners, hundreds of frameworks, and millions of pages of sustainability reporting. Even inside companies whose published commitments and personal leadership were as serious as SC Johnson's, is itself a structural question that the 12 pairs do not directly answer. That question has an answer, and it's the subject of the work that I will land in this series around the end of July. I am deliberately not naming it yet. I'm asking you to hold the question. If you're a principal, a founder, a CEO with real authority, a board chair, a next generation principal, or a capital backer, and what I've described in this episode is a pattern that you recognize inside your own company, the next step is a belief architecture exploratory call. The pathway is the work with your institution at circularityedge.com. If you're a senior practitioner, a head of sustainability, a chief sustainability officer, a director, and what I've described is the pattern you've been navigating from below, the pathway is to work with you personally. The exploratory call is the same call, and the pathway it leads to is different. I'll see you next week for pair 2.